Hello, this is Alyssa Dimitro for Dabble Lab, and today I'm going to tell you how to create login functionality via GitHub in a Next.js application using NextAuth.js. So I'm going to start out here on the NextAuth.js.org homepage, and I'm going to go ahead and click on Get Started. As you can see here, it says the easiest way to get started is to clone the example app. So let's go ahead and do that. We've opened that up, it takes us to a GitHub repository. We're going to go ahead and copy the code, open your Finder, and go to the location where you'd like to clone this down. Open a new terminal with that folder. I'm going to go git clone, paste that, and press enter. I've already cloned this down to my system, so I won't do it, but that's what you should do. Press enter, and when that's done cloning, you can open up your folder and you'll see here NextAuth example is what it should be called. You can go ahead and open that up in your text editor. I use Visual Studio Code. So as you can see here, we've already got some pre-built components. I mean, everything's built out for us within this. So I think the best place for us to start is going to be to go to our .env.local.example file. So within here, we won't need a lot of these. We're really only going to need our GitHub information because we're only going to do a GitHub login. We're also going to need the NextAuth URL and the secret. So in order to configure these, it's really simple. This is going to be the URL of the location of your application. In development, it'll be localhost. In production, it's wherever you have it deployed to. We're also going to need to create a secret. They've actually got a really cool little thing here. If you click on this link, it will automatically generate a random secret. So we can use that. We'll copy that and paste that down. And then we're going to need to create a new GitHub OAuth application to fill these two in. So let's go ahead and go to GitHub, the main page, github.com. And we'll go over here and go to settings. And then down to developer settings, OAuth apps. And we're going to create a new OAuth app. You can call it whatever you want. Let's just call this one NextAuth.js tutorial. Our homepage URL is going to be localhost. So we'll just pop that down there. Oh, that's not the right thing. And you can add a description if you like, but not necessary. And for the callback URL, it's just going to be the URL location where your application is deployed. And then this is going to be the callback for GitHub. /API/auth/callback/GitHub. Okay, let's register this application, and it'll bring us to a page just like this. So I'm going to go ahead and use my client ID to fill in the GitHub ID. And then also I'm going to need to generate a new client secret. I will delete these after this tutorial, so it won't be available, but just as an example, we'll go ahead and copy that. I also like to keep mine in maybe like an extra, like on a different text editor so I can see it at any time in case I lose it. But you need to be careful with these keys. They need to be kept private. So that looks great. The next step is going to be to, this is my little test, so we're going to ignore that. Beautiful. So now we're going to rename this. We're going to delete the example at the end and just keep it .env.local, right? This one we're going to delete. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and do an npm install. That might take a moment. So while that's happening, we're going to go ahead and walk through the way some of this works. So essentially, this application runs off of the use session hook, which is provided by NextAuth. So we're going to create the code that will tell the application whether or not a user session exists. So this will help us to dynamically render content as we see fit. For instance, here it says if there's no session, then render you are not signed in, and also a sign in button. However, if there is currently a session, then render you are signed in as, and then whatever information we would require. That's really great. The way that this works is if we go to pages to app.js, this is our main page in Next.js, and this is how we get all of our content to render. So essentially, we're going to wrap all of our content, which is seen here, component with all the page props, with a provider, which comes in from NextAuth client. This is just kind of a base level of what is expected within a provider. So this is great, but what this does is allow our entire application to have access to a user's session information. So whether or not a session exists or does not will be able to be accessed by any page or file within this entire application. So let's get down to the specifics. So in order to make this run, we're going to need to go to Pages, API, Auth, and NextAuth.js. The purpose of this naming convention seen here is to tell NextAuth.js to essentially, anytime a route is hitting /auth, it should point to this component essentially. So that's how it works, and as you can see in here, they've kind of given us a couple different providers. We're not going to need all of them, so let's go ahead and delete the ones we aren't going to use today. We're just going to use GitHub, so we'll delete these. Oh. We're also going to delete all of these. We're not going to need this scope, and we're also going to delete this other link. It's not necessary. We're not going to need this database URL either because we're going to be running off JWT tokens, and we're going to keep the secret because it's going to be necessary. At this stage, I'm going to go ahead and npm install JSON web token. And we're also going to import JWT from JSON web token. That's great, looking great. So now we're going to go down to the session information. We're going to delete this unnecessary comments. We're going to take this, copy it, delete it, and we want all of this content to be within the session. So we're going to go down to the end here and paste it right there. So all of this is contained within the session. All right. So we're not going to need any of this, but we are going to go ahead and configure some of this JWT information in here. What we want to do is we want to go ahead and uncomment this secret. We're going to set the secret equal to process.env.secret. Wonderful. And we will delete this. We don't need it. We're going to delete these, but we are going to keep the encode and decode, and we're going to go ahead and uncomment those. So let's get some information popped into these. So first, for the encode, we're going to need to pass in the secret, the token, but we're not going to bother with the max age. We're going to declare that later. At that point, we're going to go ahead and write out or create a payload. So const JWT claims is what we're going to call it. That's going to be equal to a payload that basically contains a couple different headers with values. So sub's going to be equal to token.id. Name is going to be equal to token.name. We're going to go ahead and declare these later. Email is going to be token.email. And issue.time, IAT. We're going to do date.now. And then we're going to divide that by 1,000. We're also going to do expiration, which is going to be maybe like a day. So we'll do map.floor date.now divided by 1,000. Oh, and then we'll do plus, let's go 24 times 60 times 60. Beautiful. I think that we're good on that front. Don't know why it looks like it's not. Oh, I see. These should be parentheses, not curly brackets. Beautiful. Now we need to pass in this endpoint to verify the JWT via Hasura. So https://hasura.io.jwt.claims. So some of the headers we need are x Hasura allowed roles, which we're just going to put a user. Now we could put admin, but we're not going to, it's not necessary. So we're going to go user. X Hasura default role, which should be user as well. That's just going to be a string, not in an array form. We're going to go x Hasura user ID, which will be equal to the token.id, which we will declare shortly. And that's all looking pretty good. Down here, we're going to go ahead and create a variable called encoded token. This is going to use the JWT sign method to pass in the payload, JWT claims that we defined before, and also the secret. We're going to need to also pass in, we're going to need to specify which algorithm we want JWT to use. We're going to want it to use HS256, which essentially just tells it to only create one JWT token value that will be used for both Hasura and the client side. So that way we can just verify that it hasn't been compromised in any way, a little bit easier than if we had two separate ones. That's just, our preference. And then we're going to go ahead and return encoded token. Beautiful. From there, we're going to go ahead and write out the decode, which is similar but a little less verbose. We're going to do secret and token. We do want to pass in, but then we're going to use the JWT verify method. So let's go const decoded token is equal to jwt.verify. Let's go pass in the token, the secret, and then once again we're going to define the algorithms. And we're going to do it as an array this time. So let's go HS256 once again. And then a little bit more simple this time, we're just going to return decoded token. Beautiful. I think that looks all good. for now. And then we're going to move down. So we're not really going to use the pages. We can kind of delete some of these comments. We are going to go ahead and put some stuff into the callbacks here. So we're not going to need this sign in situation at the minute, but we are going to use all three of these. So let's comment these out, or uncomment them, I should say. So we're going to do the async redirect, which we're going to need, but instead of doing base URL, we're just going to go ahead and point it back to just our regular homepage, which is just slash. Okay, async session, we're going to pass in the session, but we're not going to pass in the user for this one. And we'll delete this as well. So once again, we're going to go const encoded token equals jwt.sign method with the token, the process.env.secret passed in. We're going to do the algorithm, just define that one more time, algorithm, and then just a string hs256. Beautiful. We're going to go session. We're going to declare these values. Session.id is going to be equal to token.id. Session.token is going to be equal to encoded token, the value of that. And then we're going to return a promise with the session data within it. Beautiful. Now we're going to set up this async JWT. We're going to pass in the token and the user. We don't need the rest of this here. Okay, so we're going to basically create a variable that will let us know if there is a session or if a user is signed in. Is user signed in equals user, either true or false. And then we go if is user signed in. We're going to go ahead and token.id is going to be equal to this, user.id. Otherwise, we're going to return another promise with the token. Beautiful. Okay, well that's all looking good. We're not going to do anything with the events at this time, but we'll just delete the comments out. We can change the theme to dark, but we'll just keep it light. And then debug false. But I'm going to change that to true because I like a little bit more of a verbose error code if needed. I think we're looking good. We're not seeing any errors. Our local.env is doing great. We're having no problems deleting, but that's no issue. So right now we're just going to go ahead and npm run dev and see what we got going on. So let's go ahead and open up localhost. Okay, we've got this all running. So at this point we can probably do a little walkthrough to see how this all works. So as you can see, it says you are not signed in. It gives us an option to sign in, but automatically with this starter, we get a client-side rendering example, server-side rendering example. We get a protected route, which I can't view because I'm not signed in, as well as an API example. So let's go ahead and do a sign in. So it takes us to a page that says sign in with GitHub. Then it asks us to authorize or to allow this application to have our information. So we'll authorize. And at this point, we're good to go. As you can see, I can now access this content because I'm signed in. And if I sign out, I must be signed in to view this page. Okay, thank you so much for your time. I hope this helped, and have a great day.